What is up, harvesters? Welcome back to my subscribers, and if you're new here, welcome to Hobby Harvest. My name is Ken. So today I want to talk to you guys about what the best seed mixes are for those food plots in the big woods. So I'm going to take you guys back to when I first started doing this many moons ago. So I have been hunting for over 25 years now in the big woods. That is the ecosystem that I am the most familiar with. I have since branched out from there and have gotten experience in other ecosystems as well. But this is definitely my bread and butter. It's the one I've been in the longest. It's the one I've been planting food plots in the longest. And so I'm going to try to share with you all of my past experiences, my fails, and my successes so that you guys can learn from my experience and just skip ahead on that learning curve without having to waste years like I did back when I first got started at doing this. So what did I do when I wanted to put food plots in the woods? I came on YouTube just like you are right now. And when I came on here, I searched how to put food plots in the woods in shady areas where they're not going to get a ton of sunlight. And I found that clover food plots are the thing you want to plant if you want to plant in the shade in the woods. And that is partially correct. So the reason why that is partially correct is because if you are down south, by all means plant clover in the woods. Get those nice, beautiful, lush clover food plots going. They will be so good for you, so attractive for you. But the problem was I was in northwestern Wisconsin. I wasn't in the south. So I planted clover that first year. I went in there. I picked my site. I got the soil ready. I did the soil test. I did all the things everybody on YouTube tells you to do. I got the lime in there, carried it in 50-pound bags at a time on the four-wheeler, got that all down there. I put fertilizer in there. I got the clover in there, and it came up. But it was not very good. It was attractive to the deer in that it was an extra food source, but there is clover sort of naturally growing in the woods, and this wasn't that much better than that other natural clover. It was a little bit better. They did browse on it. I had a fence put around an area as a seclusion area so I could see how well it was growing versus how much they were browsing it down. They were browsing it down, but this wasn't that attractive in the grand scheme of what a food plot really should be doing for you in the woods. And then the other thing that happens with clover in the north woods is probably the biggest reason why you don't want to plant it, and that is that it deteriorates very quickly in cool weather. So where we can plant other more cold tolerant food plot planting seed mixes, clover is not one of those. It deteriorates very quickly in the cool weather, and you are left with nothing in October and November when we're actually trying to hunt and actually trying to attract deer to an area and get those daytime movements established off of that food source. Now, I highly recommend that if you are further north in the country, you focus on planting something else other than clover in your food plots. If you're down south, by all means, continue to plant clover. It is awesome. And just make sure that when you are listening to those of us here on YouTube, you're kind of taking that into account of where is this person talking about in the country. I try to be very specific about where I'm doing these things in the country so that you guys can relate that to your personal experience. But in my northwestern Wisconsin property, I do still plant clover, but it is on an access trail. It's an access trail that goes deeper back into the property so that we can access it for habitat improvements, for pulling a deer out if we harvest one or whatever. It's not a trail that we walk. It's not any sort of food attraction that I want to hunt off of. But what we do is we have clover on there just to keep that trail open so that the woods doesn't reclaim it. And then the other thing that it does is because it does deteriorate as it gets colder out, I'm not worried about the deer being attracted to that clover. When it gets colder out, they'll be attracted to my actual food plots and I can base all their movement around. But that clover helps take browse pressure off of my food plots while they're getting established when I first plant them. So the other thing is, just quickly, that trail is almost like a shooting lane. It goes straight for like 100 yards. Deer do not like walking down a straight trail for 100 yards. So that trail is intentionally perpendicular to the way I want the deer to move. So I know the deer will cross a shooting lane like that. They won't walk down it the entire length. Now, they might skip out on it, follow it for a little ways, and then hop back in the woods. I consider that crossing it as well. But with a shooting lane like that, I can influence their movement to move perpendicular to that line, and then we can still get back in there and access that part of the property. Just an awesome combination there of a shooting lane, not for shooting, but for influencing perpendicular movement of the deer herd, and for putting clover on it to take browse pressure off of my other food plots. And so when I was trying to plant clover, the one thing I did stumble upon that worked very well for me was that I got a cultivator for the back of my four-wheeler. I will link that below in the description so you guys can check out that cultivator I have, but I did not put any weight on it. I just like went along and agitated the top of the soil, and it worked so well for me for preparing those food plots. To this day, I still use that cultivator. I don't really like turning over the dirt like a disc or a plow would. I like to just agitate that top layer when we're planting in the woods, and I can achieve that very easily with this cultivator. So go check that out in the description if you guys are interested in using something like that to get these food plots established in the woods. So next I want to get into the proprietary blends. These are the ones that you see in the big box stores with the picture of the big buck on the front. I tried these next after the Clover did not do what I wanted it to do in the big woods. I figured, just like many of you may have in the past or maybe currently think of, big buck on the front, it's going to put a big buck on my food plot. I want to put this stuff in my food plot this year. Some professional who knows way more about this put this blend together, and it's going to work perfectly for me. So again, I get it, I put it out there, and guess what? Pretty much only ryegrass grew out of it. Now the other things did probably grow, but the deer either buzzed them down or they were choked out by the ryegrass. Now, if you guys are looking at these proprietary blends in the big box store with the picture of the big buck on the front of them, flip them over and look at the back. If it says ryegrass anywhere in that blend, ryegrass, not rye grain, run for the hills, put it back on the shelf. Do not waste your money on that. The reason why they put ryegrass in these blends is ryegrass, like rye grain, will grow almost anywhere. And so they don't want you to throw this seed down. Maybe you didn't get enough sunlight down to it. Maybe you didn't do a soil test. Maybe you're planting in really bad soil, really bad sunlight, whatever. It will at least grow that ryegrass. And so you'll feel like you got some growth out of their blend, and you'll buy it again next year. Now, the thing is that ryegrass is not very attractive to a deer herd. Now, in the big woods, yeah, it might be, because it might be better than the natural occurring vegetation in the area, but we can do so much better than this. So if you see ryegrass in one of those blends, just put it back. Do not buy it. Don't waste your money on it. They're more expensive per acre that they seed too, for whatever reason, even though they're putting all that filler seed in there. Maybe it's all the branding and the commercial spots and whatever when you're watching all the hunting channels and whatever. But just typically I stick away from those. Now, I will buy blends like brassica blends and such from the food plot seed manufacturers, but I go right on their website and pick out specifically which blends I want. I actually order those through my local co-op, my local feed and seed. That way she can take delivery from them, and then she has a partnership with them, so she can order it for cheaper to only charge me what I would pay for if I ordered it through their website anyway. So it's the same cost to me, but she'll accept shipment of that, so that when it gets delivered, it's not sitting out on my front porch in the rain or wherever they decide to drop it off. She's got a loading dock. She'll take it there. She'll call me up when it's in, and I can just go pick it up. She'll even help me load it in my truck. So it's just a way better situation for me in this situation to buy my seed through these food plot seed manufacturers, but then through the co-op in my town as well, so that I'm able to more efficiently get that seed without it being in soaking wet bags because it was raining that day. So what does actually work in these big woods food plots? So I was actually just up on a 108 acre parcel in the northeastern part of Wisconsin this last weekend. It is a parcel that's been in this family for generations, but recently they had the person who owned it pass. It's been now handed down to the younger generation. There's a new level of interest from them to sort of make it their own. So one of the things they want to start to do is start to develop the habitat for hunting deer on it. And so we went out there, we walked the property. It has a lot of potential, but what we need to do on this specific property is put in some food plots, put in some travel corridors, all the things we talk about all the time. They will definitely see a much better hunt this year than they ever have in the past if they do these things. But they also don't have all the time in the world to completely overhaul an 108 acre parcel. So they're only going to be working on parts of it this year. That's going to give us the huge advantage of being able to adjust year to year. This parcel, although it's been hunted for generations, didn't have a lot of trail cams out on it the last few years. There's not a lot of data on what the deer herd in this area looks like. So we're really trying to get in some food plots, get in some mock scrapes, get in those man-made deer trails, connect this all together, get them those lines of movement starting to get established. They'll have a great hunt this year just based on that alone, but then we'll be able to get a good census of what the deer herd in the area is and what it really needs. And so what I love to plant in food plots, my number one top food plot that I can plant is a mix of brassicas and legumes. So half of it in brassicas, half of it in like beans and peas. I'll usually dress that up with a cereal grain just as a nurse crop so that they don't get nipped off as soon as those beans and peas come out of the ground. It'll give the deer that, be it winter rye or oats or wheat or whatever, to nip on before they get to those bigger legumes that are planted in there. But that doesn't necessarily work in the big woods. I would absolutely love for it to work in the big woods because it is my top highest priority, highest productive type of food plot, but we can't typically get that working in the big woods. So the thing I always default to is winter rye. That's winter rye grain, not winter rye grass like we talked about earlier. Now, winter rye grain will literally grow anywhere. It grows in the bed of my truck when it gets wet. We can get it to grow in poor soils, which is what this northeastern Wisconsin property is dealing with, is poor soils. It will help to build the quality of the soil after years of doing this as well. We can also like put in buckwheat or something as a summer cover crop to try to increase the quality of the soil as well. But first year for them on that property of putting all these improvements in, I highly recommend that they just put in winter rye. We'll see what we have. We can adjust year to year. We want to see what the browse pressure on that winter rye is because we don't even know how big the deer herd is in that area. We know, overall what the density is in the area, but that specific property we don't know. So we want to put in something that isn't going to just get browsed down to nothing. The advantage of winter rye is that if they eat it, they don't kill it. Where if they eat a bean or a pea when it is very young, it's just going to kill it. It's going to nip the top off and it won't grow anymore. Same thing with a brassica, although brassicas tend to not be that attractive to the deer in the early season when they start growing. They're more attractive late season and all the way into like January, February if you still have them in the ground. Mine on my southeastern Wisconsin food plot, they were nipped down to nothing because of the long winter, but as they started getting into spring green up, they grew like crazy again, and I actually had to just terminate them 2 weeks ago. But we are wanting to plant this winter rye in the North Woods. If you have never done this before, if it's year one for you, plant winter rye in there. See what you got. Definitely put that exclusion cage in there. Put a fence around an area to see how much browse pressure you're getting. But you will carry a crop into the hunting season in October and November when we want it the most. We don't really care if we have a nice, awesome looking food plot this time of year. We want that nice food plot during the hunting season. When the season is open, we have tags to fill, and we want to put deer where we want to put them that time of year, not this time of year. So we definitely will start with that winter rye grain. We can always then shift and adjust to these other things. So I should really take my own advice, and on my northwestern Wisconsin property, just put in winter rye grain from here until the end of time. We will see a successful season. We've seen successful seasons every year from here on out by doing that, but I like to experiment with stuff. So if you guys do like to see those things that I'm experimenting with and working on, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on those when I bring them to you here. But that's just stuff that I like to continually adjust, continually try new things. I'm actually working on a weird thing with willow trees in my backyard right now. That's still got a ways to go before I can bring that to you guys because they still need some time to grow up. But I've never seen anybody do that before with willow trees. So, stay tuned, subscribe. I'll bring that to you guys too. I think that'll work out really well. It's a really weird way of getting willows established, but so far it's working out great. All right, so if you guys feel like you got some value from this video, go ahead, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you really enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this one too. So go check that out, and I'll catch you on the next one.